the aim of this video is to make the chain very smooth, precise, but it's still gonna cut very fast. And the methods we're gonna show you, you can apply on any chain. So we're not really gonna go into the depth of it. We show you how we do it, and yeah, you can apply it on your chain. So we're taking your chain. We're gonna grind some of the back tooth off. We're gonna make the breakers correctly for the tooth, and we're gonna give it a little bit of a sharpen. But we'll come closer to that when we're doing it. In the step 1 of the chain sharpening, we will start with removing the back piece here of the chain. And that's just because when you do a bore cut or you're gonna go in the wood, the edge here will stop it from eating. So especially when you have the chain for a little bit longer time, you feel when this tooth gets smaller, the bore cuts will get harder. So by removing this edge, it will always have a good cutting when you do bore cuts. One easy thing I always do is you always have a line in the back of the tooth. So the easy thing is you can grind it into that line. And that line is always a guidance of the angle you're gonna sharpen and how small the tooth can be. So by removing all this area here, it will get easier to sharpen the tooth later. And you will have another good reason for taking it away. That's more room for the sawdust. So now we made the first step by removing this back corner as we talked about. So this is 2 cutting tooths. We have removed the back corner off. And this is 2 cutting tooths that's the back corner is remaining on, that we haven't removed yet. So you can clearly see the difference between the ones. Okay, so it's many guides for the rakers that we can use. The most important thing is you have one for your specific chain, because each tooth is working individually. So when you're cutting, each tooth will rise and cut by itself. So that's why it's important to separate each cutting tooth. And that's what you do with the raker guide. Because when you put the raker guide on, for example, you tune that raker to that cutting tooth. So you're not using some guides you put on like this and you guide that, but that's wrong. So each tooth is individually cutting. So the chain actually rises up from the bar and it starts cutting. And once I use this is a raker guide as well, only for rakers. This is a combined raker guide where you can do the rakers for hardwood or softwood, and then you have rollers that will guide the file in the right direction. But we'll come to that later. So look up what's good for your chain and use that. So as we walk through the different guides, this is going to be my choice. And for that I use a normal flat file, and it's really easy. I put the chainsaw upside down because it gives me a lot of room to work. You don't have the saw body to be in your way, and it's a lot easier to sharpen the chain, in my opinion. So what I do on this one, I have a softwood and I have a hardwood position. So the softwood is the furthest down, and the hardwood is upper. That just decides how far we're gonna take down the rakers. So if it's harder wood, you need to remove less of that, because otherwise the chain gets very jumpy. And if it's a bit softer wood, you can take harder, it can actually cut bigger chips out. Anyway, I put down the raker in the correct position I want to have it. So I have it on the softwood there. And I take both hands on the file and then I file it. And on those file guides you have a chrome layer as well. So you should use the file against them. And when you file it down and they're gonna get wear down, and then you have to change them out. Anyway, then we change. Next side, we file here. And why we do this on the chains to start with is because the rake is not the correct height from the beginning of the chain. You can have some tooth, you take 2 strokes. You have some tooth you don't take any strokes of. So that's the first step. We guide the rakers in with the tooth. And why we do that first is because when this is laying on the tooth, say on this CM chisel chain here, this raker guide will be right on the cutting edge here. And that's what we need to have sharp for it to cut. So by doing this first and then sharpen the chain, you will get a good result. And then as well, when I'm sharpening the cutting tooth, I don't know what you call it in English, but it's a kind of a chalk that welders use for marking the hot metal. And it looks like this. And why we use that is because it keeps the file dry. So I just put it on the file. And the file will hold longer. And it will cut in the metal better because it's dry. And that's the same thing when you're out, for example, and working, you keep your files and stuff where the chainsaw oil or in the combi can. And that's not good because they get oily and they're not dry anymore and they won't cut as good. And you don't fill up the oil before you sharp. It's better to sharp first and then you fill everything up. But anyway, we're gonna go through this a little bit fast. So I start with this tooth here. And I'm just gonna take out the depth. So basically I do this by freehand. And I give it a couple of strokes down. Like that. Just to open it up. To increase the space with sawdust. And you only have to sharp at one direction. Because the file is designed that way. It does not file in both directions. Only in one direction, and it's that direction. Okay, so we come to the last part of the 4 steps, and that's to sharp the cutting edge of the tooth. And I used to like those roller guides for that because we've been taking out the bottom here so much. So if you're gonna freehand sharp it, it's really hard because you need to come higher up to get a good cutting angle on the cutting tooth. Otherwise it'll be too deep and the angle will be like this. And it will just be bouncy. The trick is to make a saw cut fast, but it has to be very precise. And by getting the correct angle here, it's very important. So that's why I use this roller, because it guides the file to be on the correct height for the cutting tooth. So it will actually be space for the file of the chain links down here and the cutting edge. And the file guide does that automatically for me. And another thing I done here, because I want it a little bit more aggressive tooth than it says, or they recommend 8 or 4.8 here, for example, but I've gone down in size to 4.5 millimeter, and I will make it a little bit more aggressive, but it's not a problem because it will get sharp. So ja, det funkar väldigt bra nu. Den har bekymmer. So this is a new chain that we have sharpened down the chainsaw tooth, and we haven't touched the back corner of it or the rakers. So we simulated a used chain. Okay, so after the last run, when we haven't touched the chain at all, we've been taking down the rakers to the correct height, and the tooths are sharp. So we'll see how this works now when the rakers is down. Tight, men det går. So here we are, the final step. Now we've been taking down the back corners of the tooth. So the chain is exactly as we did in workshop, the 4 easy steps. And you will notice the most on the bore cut when we're doing that. Yeah, so let's try.